Hello, this is Theisan from MMA Collector. Every week I will bring in a new piece of memorabilia from my personal collection and even bring in a few collector friends with some of theirs. Our goal is to raise awareness of MMA memorabilia collecting and discuss the historical people and fights that made this sport what it is today. Join me now while we take a stroll down memorabilia lane. This episode, we are going back to 1995 and the biggest fight show in the world at the time. K1's kickboxing rules attracted top fighters from around the globe to perform in tournaments in Japan. Pat Smith won the 1993 Sabaki Challenge to come to the attention of the UFC. He established himself in the first two UFCs as a feared striker. Back in 1995, K1 was the biggest promotion on the planet at the time. They used global networking to find fighters from all over the world. You had guys from Japan, United States, Holland, just all different countries. By 1995, Smith made an appearance in K1 where he met Japan's Musashi, where he lost in round 2 by a head kick. They all brought these guys together to fight in shows over in Japan. And, this particular year was 1995.
Sure, yeah. By 95, they were paying attention to the UFC fighters as well. You see Kimo and Theisan on this program from March. And this is the follow-up to that tournament.
He is a UFC pioneer, and his fight-worn shorts in K1 are a real one-of-a-kind piece.
Pat Smith also, I believe, here at the Revenge 2 also had a match. So they were paying attention to UFC fighters, but they were the biggest stage for sure.
And, Pat competed in the K1 Grand Prix. He lost that, but he must have made a good enough impression that they invited him back to this show called K1 Revenge, where he fought Musashi in this event. And I'll flip to the page where we'll get to him and Musashi's fight.
Right there.
Right here with that be Pat Smith and Musashi.
Yep, and I understand that we promised something fight worn, Ed, and that you do have the shorts from this, and this is rare stuff now. K1, Japan, and kickboxing, but you've got the shorts. How'd you come about this, and where are they? Let's get the bust out here.
I'm going to bust them out right now. Okay, these are the shorts that he wore in that event, and he actually gifted these shorts to a good friend of his at the time, Mark Hall. And Mark and him both fought on a Japan U event pretty much right after this event. It was actually in 96. This was 95, but 11, 18, and 96. And he signed him, Patrick Smith, from the Headhunter to Mark, my good friend. And that was actually Mark Hall, who was also
a UFC
veteran of the UFC.
For sure.
7. I think maybe, was he in 2 of them? But
I think he fought a couple of times. He beat Koji Kitao, a Japanese person, got him some fights in the UFC. So let's clean this up here. He gave these shorts, he dated them 11/18/96, as you can see.
Yes, and that's the same date as the Japan U tournament.
The U Japan the famous U Japan show where 11/17 I think is the date on that, and so in that exchange he gave the shorts. Mark Hall fought Don Fry that show.
Yes,
and Pat Smith fought Dave Beneteau.
Yes,
Canadian.
He was also a UFC.
Another UFC guy.
Yes.
So for sure, Japan was paying attention. By 96, he went and gave the shorts to Mark after the show. It was almost a year after having used them. But like you said, it's from him to a friend. So he gave them up to Mark Hall. And how'd they get to you? You bought Mark's collection, didn't you?
I bought Mark's collection. There was a third party in between us, but and it came with several different things, and I'm hoping that on a future episode I can show something really cool of Mark Hall from his UFC 7 debut. We lost Pat too soon, and we don't want this MMA forefather forgotten.
Patrick Smith is no longer with us, and for that, the MMA world should remember. Granted, he is one of the most controversial figures from the early days, as many remember him trying to break Ken Shamrock's toes in his first UFC fight, and he has a highlight reel of unbelievably violent knockouts, as well as the infamous elevator brawl with Tank Abbott. His K1 career never took off despite a win over Andy Hug, and there were times where his demons caught up with him outside of the octagon. Pat Smith should be remembered for his ferocity in the octagon, and at the end of the day, the piece we looked at today, his K1 fight-worn shorts, were something Pat gave Mark Hall, a friend, and that's maybe something Pat Smith needed more of in his life. Gone but not forgotten.
Next episode, we are staying in Japan and the mid-90s for a look at full-on Valley Tudo.
If you enjoyed our video, take a moment to like and share, and subscribe to the MMA Collector on YouTube and join our collector community.